What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday when we're recording this. We are coming off of a nice night, both Sheets and I. Hopefully you guys have been watching the videos. It looks like a lot of people have. We've got some winners on Draftkings, some winners on Fanduel last night, and thanking us for the videos. Much appreciated. Guys, keep giving us the like, the thumbs up, and subscribe. We've been on a little bit of a roll here, so we're going to carry it on over to this week in the NFL. It's going to be an interesting week. Sheets, come on in, talk a little bit about just your thoughts of the slate, and then again, congrats on last night.
Thank you. It's again, we talked about this in previous presentations about when you're running well. In other words, just when you're making money, let's just put it that way, that don't discount what a hot streak can kind of do for you. Because I know the math doesn't dictate that one affects the other, but it does affect psychologically your ability to execute plans. And, Bobby called me, last night after we were doing really, really well. And he was saying, I'm so proud of you, because, when you started, you really didn't know anything. And, I'm showing you what to do, but it's one thing to know what the plan is. It's the other thing to kind of actually have the plan and execute it, and when you're doing well, it gives you that comfort level that you can execute a plan, even if it may not be the chalkiest plan or the one that looks the most likely to win, but that from an equity perspective it's the right plan. And when you're running well, it allows you to execute that plan with more confidence. So hopefully that you guys have been learning from some of these of not just what the plays are, but how to kind of make plans and how to execute them.
Absolutely. I think that we've been focusing a lot on lineup construction, which people have really appreciated. So we're going to keep doing that. One thing that's interesting about this slate is obviously there's a lot of games you could stack, but we have a lot of injury news that's probably going to come up late. And I just wanted to address some of the plays we suggest things might be different. We'll talk through the options, but it's going to be a little bit different when it actually comes game time on Sunday.
Again, you have more experience this than I do, but at this point you should probably start reminding people about what happens towards the end of these NFL seasons. That all kinds of craziness can happen. Now, us being NBA guys, it's just kind of just another day at the office, right? But for the NFL, which people aren't used to sometimes, and you'll see guys just ruled out for whatever reason. They just want to shut them down for the season. The NFL's tough on the human body, and sometimes that just happens. So just you're going to see some slates where just kind of weird guys just kind of show up and just kind of, I guess be ready for it.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go through the games, but I'm going to be recommending a lot of players, a lot of Dolphins and Giants, which I didn't think
nice.
we would have been doing a little while ago. Anyway, let's start off with the first game. What are your thoughts sort of here on the Seattle Carolina?
Okay, so Seattle Carolina is a good place to start because it's as of now, it's featuring probably the two chalkiest running backs on the slate. You could argue that Barkley might be the third, but between McCaffrey, Barkley, and Chris Carson, you're looking at three of the highest owned guys again as of Thursday on the slate. So I guess that's kind of where you have to start. They're both projecting really well. They both look like good plays. I still worry. I don't know why I worry, but Christian McCaffrey, I was worried about this last week and it just didn't matter. They just kept on trying to feed him. He's been just grinding out performance all year long. Even though the last couple of weeks maybe he didn't get his 50 or whatever it is, he's still such a huge part of this offense. I don't know. How much the new coach really is going to just run him into the ground, but assuming that he gets a kind of a full workload, it just looks to be kind of a really good play. And Chris Carson, he's a guy that's never been my kind of guy. I never play him for some reason. He is projecting to be a pretty good play, but I don't know about either of these guys at 20% ownership. I guess I'll have to defer with you on that. So as far as the running backs go, I guess that's where I'll start with this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I have interest in both running backs. I think it's a pretty good spot for both of them. But again, with the high ownership, I could see maybe looking to pivot elsewhere, and I could see doing that with McCaffrey just because of the price. I think there's a lot of great players out there that literally have a firm belief that you don't play Christian McCaffrey ever. Just that you don't play a running back at these prices because you can get enough expected value from other guys, and also he's always owned, and those guys do extremely well. Now, obviously, there's some days where you need McCaffrey if you're going to win a tournament. I'm not saying this is or isn't, but I think I'm probably leaning more towards the field on both he and Carson. Like, probably going to be right around the field. I don't think I want to be too crazy overweight with it. I think there's enough value to play McCaffrey, but I like the spot. I just think there's other places to pivot, but I also don't want to miss out on guys who I really like just because they're going to be a little bit chalkier than I want.
I would like to say, again, with the NFL, you could be a little more cutesy as far as your analysis goes, not be kind of as projection-based. So as far as, I don't like narratives, but as far as the game scripts and stuff like that go, I will say this. Now, I don't know exactly where they stand DVOA or whatever, but it's very recent in my mind that when Carolina just got destroyed by the Redskins running game, Seattle coming off of, a kind of a Russell Wilson crappy performance, I can see variations where if they do get Carson going, they're just going to just keep on just pounding him. Again, so he's not a guy that I usually play, but I could see myself playing him here. As far as the receivers and stuff go, on the Seattle side, I mean, you could play your normal guys, Metcalf and Lockett. Metcalf looks to be the better, projection option. Again, I don't know how you feel about Russell Wilson, if you think this will be a bounce-back game or anything like that. On the Carolina side, the guy who's emerged the clearest, I mean, obviously clear number one is DJ Moore over there. He's definitely their top option. He's really talented. He projects decently, and he's projected pretty low owned as well. Mm-hmm. And Curtis Samuel, once again, I mean, he's projecting really low owned. An interesting guy also who I thought would be more chalky last week, but he turns out to be a little less chalky than I thought. And they didn't really do that much with his prices. Ian Thomas. I mean, presuming that what's his name, Olsen is still out. I mean, he's still only 3,100, so he's going to be an option too. Again, I don't want to be that guy that recommends everybody, but I mean, on the Carolina side, you really could decide to go this route. You could play Allen with these receivers, but again, with McCaffrey in that backfield, it's just so hard for me to ever really play Kyle Allen like that.
Yeah, I think this game is definitely mini stackable. I wouldn't play Kyle Allen, but I don't mind Russell Wilson at all, just playing a different game script. And I don't mind taking shots on the receivers. What worries me is that the receivers are so spread out and there's enough good ones now. It's a little bit trickier. I think Josh Gordon is a phenomenal tournament play. At 3.7, look, this is what I do. I recommend Josh Gordon.
That's your brand.
It is. I'm not going to pivot off of this now. Josh Gordon at 3.7 has slate breaking upside. Just as in terms of talent, he's probably one of the best receivers in football and just hasn't been on the field enough. Obviously, learning more of the playbook with Seattle should help. 3.7, great value to potentially be a slate breaking type of guy. I really think that's possible. And I don't mind, you play a River, maybe you play a Wilson to him, or you just play him and then run it back with McCaffrey. I don't mind if you want to play him and Carson and then run it back with McCaffrey or Moore. I like DJ Moore quite a bit also. I think he's it's not that he's underpriced. His production, I think, is a little bit shocking, like how consistent and good he's been. Like, he's just been one of the best receivers in football every single week pretty much. And I think at this price, at this ownership, we have to have some interest, and it's not a defense that we need to fear the way that we used to. So while you don't have the ideal guy throwing him the ball, those are the guys I'm looking at. Probably not going to be crazy heavy overweight on anyone except for those guys. But I will be overweight on all of them. And then I probably am just going to be around the field with like guys like Lockett and Metcalf and Hollister. I don't think I'm going to be crazy. They're talking about 5% guys in a lot of lineups. If I end up on them, I'm okay with it. But I just feel like there's better spots that I like better.
Yeah. And again, what you see me doing is just kind of building like kind of your pure stacks as we go along, just to kind of see what doing so would leave you salary wise. Just give me ideas of different ways I could go.
Also, like, you have Curtis Samuel in this game at 4.4. It's just too cheap. Like, and there's going to be all these other love for all these receivers who are going to be like minimum cost and stuff. But like, at least Samuel's like an established receiver. Like, he's been playing all year and he's a legit number 2 receiver. I would just rather take the shots on guys like Samuel. than some of the other guys. So I think at no ownership at 4.4, he's kind of an interesting way to go too. I'm going to have exposure to all the overweight on most players in this game, it looks like, just based on what I'm saying. And I think that Samuel's definitely going to be one of them.
Okay, sounds good. Now, again, we're not going to really talk about defenses and stuff, but maybe we'll talk about that kind of a little later on. Because
you can throw in Seattle defense if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, my view on defenses is just it's a little more random than maybe other people think. But we'll talk about this some other time, I guess.
No,
all right, so next game on the slate for me is I'm just going through the DraftKings thing, is New England at Cincinnati, which is I don't know why New England even has to do this. You know, they evidently they got caught filming like the Bengals plays or something like that. I mean, why do they even need to film the freaking Bengals plays?
I can't tell you, man. I was confused by that one as well.
Yeah. But so in this game, honestly, from the New England side, I would like to think that they're not going to have to do all that much, right? So on one hand, it seems to me like a game that would like to try to establish Sony Michel or whatever, but his projections kind of stink. I wasn't really going to go with much of anybody on the New England side. The Bengals side, to me, is just kind of interesting because, yeah, I'm really, really upset that I didn't have him last week. He destroyed me in my one season-long league also, is I've been playing Mixon a decent amount, and he just is like gets all this freaking workload for the Bengals, and I didn't have him last week when he smashed, and maybe it would be chasing him this week, but at 3% ownership, you know, if you're just going to keep feeding him the ball every time, I know like they talk about Belichick wants to take away whatever, but I don't know. In a game like this, I don't know exactly how much attention Belichick's going to give anybody. You want to know the truth, you know. So I would maybe try Joe Mixon, and then if you want to try a pass catcher, again, I'm not going to be too off the board. I mean, you could go with, you know, the fancier play. You could go with John Ross or Auden Tate or somebody like that. Actually, Auden Tate is he out?
Yeah,
I'm not even sure. But Tyler Boyd seems to be the safest way to go, especially if New England's going to be ahead and, you know, the Bengals need to get reception after reception. Maybe him. But aside from that, this is not a really exciting game for me.
Yeah, this is a game where I think you can argue for both defenses. I know that sounds weird, but like against the Patriots, but this does not look like the same Patriots team. And on the road and at 1.8K, I could see playing Cincinnati's defense, and I could see playing the Patriots defense where they could easily smash. But I do think that Sony Michel is a guy I might want to get some exposure to, like about 10% or so. I could see them feeding him the ball more than usual in this kind of a matchup. And I don't see the Cincinnati doing much to stop it. So if he squeaks his way into 2 touchdowns, he's really cheap. So I would take a shot with Sony. I wouldn't – it's not a James White game for me, but I would not be surprised. The guy I play quite a bit. I do think that the only other guy I'll have 10% of as of right now, and this is maybe a little high, is I want to take shots on John Ross here. Like, the one thing, as good as New England's secondary is, they have trouble with speed. They aren't the fastest D-backs, and John Ross is a speedster. Now, he's just coming back, so you're playing him really hoping for a big play. There's probably better guys, but I think he's worth gambling on, and you know, maybe could create a little bit of havoc and get you 15 or 20 fantasy points for his 3.9 salary. I think he's an interesting long shot play, I would say.
Okay.
Let's move on. What we got?
All right. I guess that's the end of this game, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of good games this week.
Yeah, if you say so.
Good DFS games, sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's go to this Tampa Detroit disaster. Okay. So
what's wrong with this?
Nothing. Nothing's wrong with it. So let's just first dispense with this idea. So Jameis Winston has a thumb, but I'm not too worried about that. He's 100% playing. I presume he's 100% playing. So the first thing I would look at is on the Tampa side, how popular is he going to be? I don't know, but there's Godwin, of course, who's now the number one. Well, because Mike Evans is out, so he's not in sharing with Mike Evans. So we're going to have to hear about Brashad Perriman, and we're going to have to hear about Justin Watson as the two other wide receivers. They're both, well, Perriman is 4,500 and Watson is 3,700. And I don't know which of them is going to be popular, but they always are, right? Whenever you have that second receiver in a game like this, where you have one team that's just passing the ball every freaking possession, I mean, one of these guys is going to be popular. But right now, neither of them look that way. I mean, right now, neither of them look to have that much ownership. So aside from Godwin, who seems to be like the easy play, the other guys you could look at are Watson and Perriman from the Tampa side. I'm starting with receivers, I guess.
No, but that's interesting. But the funniest part to me is that, and I agree that I'll have some exposure to Watson and Perriman and all that, but I think that the best cheap receiver play in this game is on the other side of.
Well, we're getting there, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So on the other side, there were, again, I don't know how fancy you want to get, but with Marvin Jones out, again, the natural thing to do is, okay, just go with Kenny Golladay, but Danny Amendola is popping as a really, really insane value. He's a PPR kind of monster. And, he's again, I don't know how popular he's going to be. These ownerships I'm looking at just can't be right. I presume he's just going to have to be more popular than this. But right now they're showing him at 7%. So you could do, I mean, I don't hate to say do whatever you want, but in this game, you could stack the crap out of all these guys. You could make all of them work and have so much room for salary elsewhere. I mean, as an example, I mean, you didn't have to get that fancy. Like if you went with Godwin and let's put Perriman in just for the hell of it, let's just run it back. Let's do both of them. Let's do Golladay and Amendola. I mean, this is a decent amount of money that you could play. You know what I mean? Again, you don't have to play this way, but it's certainly a way to do it. The other guy I wanted to ask you about the receiver side, the guy I'm looking at is a 3K Chris Lacey. Again, just he's going to be the third guy probably, and he's 3K, and he has a projection. So he's another guy. Does he win you $1 million? I really have no idea, but he's someone that I would probably, if I was going to end up playing like 20% of my lineups being stacks in this game, I'd probably be kind of forced to put a lineup with him in it. The running backs in this game, I'll try what's his name again from Detroit if I have to. Bo Scarborough, he looks good at 5%, but I'd be more interested in the passing part of this game.
Yeah, I'm way more interested in the passing part of the game. I'm not going to play Scarborough. I don't think at all. But maybe I'll change my mind and throw him in the lineup. I just don't like the running backs against Tampa Bay, and I don't like the situation there with Detroit. I like the passing game a ton in this game. I'm going to be all over this game. This is one of my favorites, and I think that I would put it ahead of Seattle, Carolina for me in terms of stacking. I want to be overweight on every single play in this game, pretty much. I think that including guys like Lacey and who I'll take a shot on, but mostly it's going to be Amendola, Godwin, Golladay, with a little bit of Watson in there for me. I think that, I'll throw in Perriman and Lacey and Howard, but I think mostly that's going to be where I focus my attention. And this is a really, really good spot. I'm surprised the total's as low as it is. I know Detroit can, like, they've actually played faster this year and they've thrown the ball more. And, it just seems like every week, no matter what happens, we're going to get some sort of a crazy performance out of Jameis. So definitely more interested in Jameis than I am on the other side, but don't mind either quarterback. But I really like Jameis will probably be one of my highest, potentially my highest owned quarterback again, just because the guy he's going to throw the ball 50 times.
And the thumb doesn't bother you, right?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, I may change my mind if I hear more by the weekend. I also do think that Ronald Jones in the non-Jameis lineup is in play. I know people don't feel good about it, but still getting enough work to where I'm okay with it. I know that he didn't have the number of rushing attempts the last couple of weeks that we would hope for. And obviously we had the huge game from Barber the other time, but I think as a long shot play at this price, I would prefer him over a guy like Scarborough.
Says James Winston, read this carefully, has yet to resume throwing a football. but he was spotted doing so with a tennis ball. So he was spotted throwing a football with a tennis ball.
How was that?
I know what they meant, but I mean,
yeah, that's pretty funny.
Anyway, can you imagine like a picture of him with a football and a tennis ball in like the same hand? It's kind of like, okay. All right, so from the Tampa-Detroit game, you go to this next mess, okay? So Chicago at Green Bay, I think the last time these guys played might have been the first Thursday night game of the year or something like that, after which, I was all prepared for another season of everybody just airing it out. And after that game, Twitter was just blowing up with, oh, my God, this is the ugliest football I think I've ever seen or whatever it is. Now, again, the NFL is the NFL, so it ended up, we ended up having a really big season of a lot of points. But here's this game again. So you have to, I don't want to say talk me on it or off it. I will just comment that I can't find a single player in this game who is going to be owned more than 3%. Okay. Just because, the last time they played was really sloppy, and it could be something similar. So with that said, if you want to play Aaron Jones, sit with Devontae Adams this week at much lower ownership than last week, to say the least. I mean, if you play a bunch of lineups, I'm not going to murder you for that. And no one's quite as good as they seem, and no one's quite as bad as they seem. And when you see a game like this and they go, oh, God, who can I play? I mean, you never know. I mean, I think this has a better – let's put it this way. If all these guys are 5% owned, I think it's got a better than – and that's not exactly the right way to use the math, but I think there's a better than 5% chance that you have, a couple of really good performances out of this game. Like if you want to play, let's not even be too fancy. Let's play Aaron Jones with Devontae Adams with Allen Robinson, right? Or something like that. I mean, if that hits, you'll be the only one to have it. Their projections are not that great, but they're not that horrible either. So, again, it would be not my core way to go. But, again, just because it's an easy game to figure out where the production's going, especially with the receivers, I might throw one in just for fun.
Sure. It would literally just be for that. This is okay. I don't want to waste,
okay.
Too much on this. I think that if there's a play, it would be Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams. I actually like Jamal Williams as a sort of a funny pivot to the other value on the slate. And, this guy was trendy a couple weeks ago and now is fading away. But if you look at the majority of the games he's played this year, he's had enough work to where he could really get there. And he's 4.2. That's pretty much the end of my interest in this game.
Okay. So kind of an intriguing game. I don't know so much from a fantasy perspective, but from a football perspective, Denver at Kansas City, Denver kind of a resurgence, with this quarterback. And this isn't the first time that they actually put up a decent game. Mm-hmm. So recently, only a few weeks ago, they were just destroying Minnesota on the road. And then, then they eventually kind of caved in the second half and they couldn't stop them. But they meant business in that game too. And yes, and last week against Houston, they just really, really took it to them offensively. I mean, they were pulling out all the stops and they were doing great. And, Kansas City's defense is not exactly the greatest thing in the world. So this is a game that I might have some bizarre interest in. The first guy I wanted to bring up from this game, he's just showing as incredibly low owned, and he's in a price range that is really not filled with other people that much. But Philip Lindsay on the Denver side is someone who we played before, and we've also played running backs against Kansas City before. And at 5% ownership, I'm certainly going to put him in my player pool, and he might be a guy I play a decent amount of. Now, again, I don't know if they might get game scripted out of this game, you know what I mean, where they end up having to try to pass the ball. But he's an interest of mine. And the other guys from Denver –
they'll play it when they have to pass the ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other Denver guys are the same guys I went with last week. Was Noah Fant. I don't know how injured he is. Ooh, they upped his price a little bit. But Noah Fant is fine. And Cortland Sutton, I mean, he's – got to be their number one guy, so he's fine. So that was my initial interest on the Denver side, is actually more than maybe I would have thought. I don't know why, but on the Kansas City side, I wasn't too involved in this. Look, you could play Holmes with Hill and Holmes with Sammy Watkins or whatever. They look okay, but they actually do look kind of low owned. So maybe I would take a shot with that.
Yeah, I just think it's too – I think that people are just kind of stupid. Like, they don't play Patrick Mahomes. They just have very short memories. Like, just play Mahomes. And when he's low owned, we're just going to play him. I don't care about the matchup. This team doesn't have a decided running game. Let's play the passing game. I think that you play Mahomes, and I love the running it back with either Freeman or Sutton. Or Lindsey or Sutton. I don't even mind Freeman, but I prefer Lindsey or Sutton, and I really like Sutton. I think Sutton is the overlooked guy every week, and this guy is a number one who can actually light people up. Kansas City, we've seen shaky performances from them in the past. I think I'm going to definitely have some Mahomes to Hill or Kelsey running it back with Sutton or Freeman, and I think Sutton or Lindsey, and I think that it's a really good way to go. I don't think I'm going to play Noah Fant much, but maybe like 5% or something. But I really like those other guys. I think you're right on point. This could be an interesting little like mini game stack. And I just think that people are just crazy. They just overreact to everything. This same situation, if we had Mahomes just the same price as the other quarterbacks, 6 weeks ago, everybody is jumping all over it. Like, the guy is still great. I don't care if he's banged up. It doesn't matter. He can still have the highest score on the slate easily. Let's play Mahomes, especially while they're going to keep throwing the ball all over the place.
I also think a way to be different, if you didn't want to go double tight end, is again, people that are going to stack this game are probably going to do something with Kelsey and one of these wide receivers, probably. If you wanted to be different, you could use Fant as your run back at the tight end position instead of Kelsey, which might be a little more contrarian than Sutton. You know what I mean?
I don't think Sutton's going to be popular.
Okay. Well, I just mean like not using Kelsey. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it seems logical. I mean, it seems logical to me, right? If I was going to use Holmes, take one of the wideouts with Kelsey or something like that.
Or just one of the wideouts. You can play Watkins or just Hill. Like, even I don't really care which one you take. You can take one or two with Mahomes.
And you're not too worried about the whole. Again, this is not really my thing either. But are you too worried about the Chris Harris and the shadows and all that stuff? I mean, I don't. If anybody wants to try to shadow Tyreek Hill, God, good luck to you.
Yeah, Godspeed. Good luck to you. That's where I'm at.
All right. So as you were alluding to before, Miami against the Giants. I think there's some very interesting things to consider here. The first of them being probably the two, I don't want to say best plays, but the two, from a projection standpoint, the best value plays are also going to be the two chalkiest plays from this game. Are going to be Saquon Barkley and Patrick Laird. Okay, from one from either team. Now again, Barkley has not had a good game in a while. Okay, but he's 7,700 against Miami. So it's if there was this, I feel as though I've been saying this a few times about a lot of running backs, though. Like the whole idea, if there was a spot where he was going to get there, this would be it, and they just don't ever. But I think I'd go back to that whole logic again. You know what I mean? Like if there was a spot there, he was going to get right and get a lot of work and get some touchdowns, do whatever. I think this would be the spot. So I think that I'm gonna Saquon's just got to be, if not my top owned running back, at least it's got to be up there. Let's put it that way. And on the other side again, Patrick Laird. I look at the running backs first. Patrick Laird. He looks like a pretty well projected play. Again, I don't know about 17% ownership, but he's certainly cheap and he lets you do a lot of other things with your lineups. Although we have to think about what that would be. In other words, like. What would you use that money to pay up for if you did go down to Patrick Laird? Well, there's certainly Christian McCaffrey and stuff like that. So as far as the running game goes, that's where I would go. And the wide receivers, is Devontae Parker really going to be 2% owned? I mean,
we don't know if he's going to play yet.
Oh, okay, that's probably why.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So if he's out, we have all that to deal with.
Yeah.
So we got the Albert Wilson, Allen Hurns, Isaiah Ford. Mac Hollins' decision to make. All right, well, I'll leave that analysis to you. But on the wide receiver side, I am really upset because from the showdown slate this past week, when we were analyzing these games, I was like, okay, there was Shepard, Tate. Oh, Darius Slayton's been getting all the freaking targets, but I don't want to play him because it's probably just Daniel Jones who liked him. And meanwhile, I'm like, why am I thinking that way in a freaking showdown slate? You know what I mean? Like, why can't he just be a much better receiver than all these guys? And he's open more, so that's why whoever it is going to throw it to him. So Slayton, Shepard, Tate, have fun. You could certainly put these guys in. You could stack this game if you want. I defer to you as for better analysis of this game.
It's going to be hard without knowing the Miami receiving situation. I think you take shots on obviously Hearns and Gesicki and Ford if there's no Parker. And even if Parker plays, I don't mind those guys, especially Hearns, obviously, and Gesicki. But, I don't mind a Tannehill or maybe even an Eli stack. Like,
who's playing?
I mean, well, okay, that's the other thing. So we have to know that for sure. But, like, I think it's going to be Manning. Like,
I don't think it matters. I think that you play whichever quarterback.
Yeah, I just think it's the Dolphins. This is what we do. I know they've been a little bit better lately, but, like, I wish I liked the individual receivers more. I'm not as in love with Slayton and all these guys as maybe some other people are, or Shepard and all them. But I do think I want some, like, a little bit of exposure. I need to wait to see what happens. Because if Parker's playing, I'm just going to play Parker, and he's going to be owned for sure. But if he's not, it's going to change everything. So I think we just have to wait and see. But it definitely is a game that I could see stacking. I like both quarterbacks in the game, regardless of who it is for the Giants. And I especially like Fitzpatrick. I think he's a strong play and he's going to be completely unowned again.
Well, when you were saying that that you don't like Shepard or Slade as much as some other guys, I mean, like, again, it's only Thursday, so again, crowd think is gathers a lot of momentum.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I don't even know I can't even find, like, wide receivers that are that highly owned. Well, we'll get there. Well, Godwin will be highly owned, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll get there. But as far as I'm concerned, like, these Giants guys none of them are over 10% yet. So I'm not too worried about ownership.
I think Slayton's going to be over 10%. That's my guess.
So I mean, again, just for fun, if you put, like, there's going to be a lot of ways to spend your money, I think, this week. So what did you think? You didn't comment on. What do you think of Patrick Laird?
Yeah, I'm okay with Laird. I don't really have an incredibly strong take about using him or not using him. As of right now, I'd probably maybe near the field on him. Depends on how much I end up deciding to go with some of the other guys. Like I mentioned, I like Lindsey. I like some other guys in different price ranges as sort of pivots. That's sort of where I'm at. So I'll probably be around the field on him, maybe a little bit beneath it.
Okay. The next game, Houston, Tennessee, is, I think, going to get some ownership, I think. So let's start with the Houston side of it. Hopkins had a really, I want to say a good game. I'll say a really good fantasy game last week after being down by 100 touchdowns, right? And I will also say that Hopkins had a really good fantasy week again after being down by 100 touchdowns. I will also say that is Will Fuller definitely out again?
No.
Okay. So that is definitely something to monitor. As of now, I mean, I'm looking at Hopkins as obviously the best play. 17% on wide receiver. I don't know if that's my thing, but it's a really big game for both teams. I'm sure that both teams are going to really, even more than normal, just go for whatever their best options are going to be. And I think they're going to put the ball in Watson's hands. They're going to see what he can do with it, and Hopkins is going to be the number one target. I mean, again, I'm not telling anything that everybody else doesn't already know. The one on the other side is A.J. Brown at 20%. I mean, I don't know, man. You're gonna have to talk me into that one. I would much rather. I mean, I know he's been like the man recently, but I would
every single week this season.
I got you. I would almost rather go with freaking Corey Davis.
I like the Corey Davis play. I'm going to do some of that too. But like AJ Brown's a good receiver. Like he's got a future. He's got talent. And I think that in these games you tend to lean on your best players. And I like Brown. I like Hopkins. I wish I didn't. They're going to be popular, but I like both of them. Again, guys, I don't want to say I'm with the field, but that's sort of like where I'm leaning with them. I do think I'm going to take a bunch of shots on Will Fuller, though. I think that he can break this defense down a couple times if he's in the game. So I really, really like him as a play that's going to be completely unowned in this game. So maybe you do something different. And you could even play the way Watson and these guys play on offense. Like you could play both of those guys with Watson in the stack. This is, I believe it's the highest total on the slate.
Looks that way.
Yeah, it is. And it's just a great spot. Like I think it's an important game, and I think that we just lean on the passing game for the Texans, and then take some shots on these receivers for the Titans. But I just think we got to keep playing Derrick Henry, and no one's going to play him because his price is going up. This guy just is exploding this time of year, and everybody keeps saying the cold weather, don't want to tackle him and all this stuff. This game's inside. Last game was in Oakland. Like it wasn't like it was freezing. He's just been absolutely a lock for the last 6 weeks, and I don't see any reason why the defense, it's not quite the same without J.J. Watt, isn't going to get run all over also. So I'm very big on Henry today on this slate too.
And again, I saw that he had a Q tag on him. So again, at this point, I mean, he's if he plays, then you're going to want to play him. You know what I mean? I don't think that they're going to, I think that, like you said,
they're trying to make him play out. If he can walk, he'll play.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's I mean, I hate to say the same thing that other people say in the industry, but that to me seems like really super sharp. I mean, especially if he's 5%. Mm-hmm. I mean, he looks like, oh my God, how can I play him at 8,500? And then next thing you know, he's in the open field for another 200-yard game in the winter. You know what I mean? So again, is it likely to happen? No, but at 5% ownership, certainly worth taking a shot. And again, I'm on tilt, so I will throw in Duke Johnson into my player pool again, just to see if maybe he does a little better than last week, especially if they do get into a passing game situation. He's not 3,900 like last week. He's 4,100 this week, but I'll throw him in kind of a lineup or two. Aside from that, I think we've talked about everybody. But again, like you guys see these guys, these 20% on wide receivers. It starts, again, I'm not as much of an NFL guy, but the way I would think about wide receivers, and this might be the way everybody thinks, so maybe it's bad, is if you were going to pay 25% ownership for a wide receiver, you probably want a guy that would be more of a target guy than a long play guy. So I guess whether A.J. Brown is there or not, I'm just trying to think about that kind of logically, that the guy that you're projecting for like 8 for 100, that you want to get 10 for 100, like Michael Thomas, would be someone more likely to pay that kind of ownership for, as opposed to I don't know, Tyreek Hill. I don't know, somebody that's 5 and 150.
That's fair enough.
Okay,
let's move on.
The Philadelphia Washington game. All right. Oh Christ, Philadelphia receivers. All right, so I have honestly no idea who's active, who's going to play for Philadelphia. I presume it's all going to be kind of figured out kind of along the way. Like what does it show like right now? Like right now we have injury. Okay, so Alshon's gone, right?
Yeah.
Alshon's gone, and Aguilar is a non-participant. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it for real that these are the two wide receivers, like Jay Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward?
And Arcega-Whiteside is questionable.
I mean, you're just gonna have to wait to see what receivers are active. But I will just make the comment that Greg Ward at 3K is a complete joke. I mean, like he was gonna play the slot last week anyway, and then when what's his name went down, Alshon went down, he was getting long passes. I mean, if they announce that Aguilar's out, Jeffrey's out, and it's going to be Whiteside and Ward, God forbid Whiteside is out, Bobby, isn't Greg Ward like 60%?
No.
No? But how isn't he? You know what I mean? Like, but who else is he going to throw the ball to?
He's going to throw it to his 2 tight ends.
All right.
That's what
I mean.
He's going to throw it to Goddard and he's going to throw it to Ertz. And that's what I think. And they run the ball. And look, I'm going to play some Greg Ward. But
okay. I see the future. I see the Sunday morning shows where it's just like the seminal question is how much Greg Ward are you playing? You know what I mean?
We don't know about Aguilar yet.
I don't. No, I know. But what if? But that's going to be one of those things. It's like Aguilar will be ruled out at 10 in the morning.
I think Aguilar plays because I mean, unless he's really like they need to win. They're in the playoff hunt, which is shocking, but they are. This is weird, man. I don't know exactly what to do with this game.
Okay, and so then on the running side, what about the new OJ Simpson? What about Boston Scott? You know what I mean? Like how healthy is Sanders?
I'm not gonna play Boston.
Excuse me, forget that. How is Jordan Howard playing?
Yeah, we don't know about Howard yet. I mean, look, there's pretty much nothing other than Sanders or like unless they announce, I don't know, like they split their running back carries anyway. They still might have 4 active running back bodies. Like, I don't think we need to go crazy with this. Like, this is not a good game.
Okay, I do have an opinion. I do have an opinion on the other side. I have 2 opinions on the other side, actually.
What is it?
On the Washington side, he's showing only 1% ownership. I just don't think that's humanly possible. I have to believe that Chris Thompson is going to get ownership throughout the course of the week.
Oh, I like that you're saying Chris Thompson because he's my guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Chris Thompson, I'm looking at 1% is like a joke. But if he doesn't get any ownership or whatever, then it seems like the game script is just kind of perfect, right? For them to be coming from behind and him, Chris Thompson being in for those carries. For those dump offs. So for me, that would be one opinion. I'm not the Adrian Peterson guy, but at 1%, again, I'm probably not going to go there. But at 1%, I'll look at it. But Chris Thompson, my top guy, and the other guy is just probably clearly the best receiver on the field now in this game is McLaurin from Washington. And again, it's a good game script for him. So McLaurin and Chris Thompson from the Washington side would be my selections from that side of the field.
Yeah, I like McLaurin quite a bit. I want to see how the weather is in this game, but like assuming that all the things are okay, like I want to play these. I want to play McLaurin on the other side with some of these guys, and I also want to play Thompson if I'm going to play some of these cheap receivers, which I'm probably going to do a little bit of. I'm not in love with this as an overall spot. I don't want to dedicate more than like 15% of my lineups to having players from this game, maybe even like 20. I don't know. Just leaving like one player. I mean, it just feels like a gross game. That's just my take. But I do like McLaurin, and I do like Aguilar, or I like whatever receiver ends up being the number 1 or 2 in Philly. I think is in play. I don't think it's a spot you want to like.
Well, we know Greg Ward will be number 1, so it's just a question of.
Yeah, Greg Ward is definitely in play.
But in all seriousness, Wentz's top targets are going to be, his top target by leaps and bounds is going to be Zach Ertz in this game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I actually like Goddard better, but that's
again, and then Goddard is clearly, in Wentz's view, I would say clearly, but I would say that I hate to say this, but like if Aguilar's aspect between him and he was throwing the ball to Ward every freaking play last week, it seemed. So I think that Goddard is definitely the second most reliable behind Ertz. And I guess Sanders would be next.
You're talking me more and more into this Ward thing. I can feel it. I don't feel great about it. But I do agree that he's definitely in play, and I think I might be much more on him by the end of the week.
The other thing I would like to say, by the way, is I hope you guys appreciate this, is when we do these things, we don't talk about what we're going to talk about beforehand. And I think that's really I like that, because one of the problems I had with like watching other podcasts and shows is it seemed as though they always just agreed with each other every freaking play. Like they would say, I like this. Yeah, absolutely. Good idea. Like, oh, I totally agree with that. Oh, I'm on board with that whole thing. Yeah, we talked about that beforehand. And they kind of came to this consensus. And I kind of like being told I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? And I kind of like, well, you know, when people are getting two opinions as opposed to two people reciting the same opinion,
Right.
I think that probably helps.
I think it is definitely better that way too.
Yeah. All right. So Cleveland. Oh, okay. So Cleveland at Arizona. The first guy that I liked from this game was, again, I first of all, I believe that you can always play Arizona passing. Okay. I think that you can always play Kyler Murray. And, you know, as I said, these guys kind of never give up. They keep playing right to the end. And I think that you can always play him. Christian Kirk is clearly their best option, but Larry Fitz at 2% ownership. Does he have one more game in him? I don't know. But he would be obviously the next guy, and I would certainly maybe I'll play some of him. And the other guy in Arizona is Kenyon Drake. I would take a shot at him. The Cleveland side is kind of a mess, but I'm looking at not a mess. It's a mess because they don't seem to ever get there for me. You have both these guys, Landry and Beckham, at over 10% ownership, and yeah, Arizona is a team that you could do something against. So I can certainly see, you know, people wanting to play this. I just have this, I don't know, I just got this weird feeling that instead of doing this Cleveland stuff where you could play Chubb and like all these things, I don't know, my off the board take maybe of this game is that this is kind of it's like an Arizona game, and I'd rather have the Arizona defense than anything from Cleveland. And that definitely is going to be contrarian. But once again, you tell me what you think.
I think it is contrarian. I think that it's interesting. I don't mind both defenses in this game, to be honest with you, but I really like this as a stack spot on both sides. I like both quarterbacks. When I like Baker, probably should perk up a little bit because I never like Baker.
That's a really good point, by the way.
I think this is just a really good spot for them, and this is a kind of like, especially him being able to run that offense indoors against a team that doesn't really get too much pressure. I feel like there's a chance that he could have a big game here. Now, Arizona's been better lately defensively, but I really think that I'm going to side on the going overweight on the receivers personally on both sides. Christian Kirk is one of my favorite receivers on the board. And I really I'm going to play Fitz. I don't care how bad he's been or how old he looks. He is 4,300. I love the matchup for him. I actually think if you get Wards with too much time on Kurt, like you could see Fitz like get targeted like 10 times in this game. So I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting game stack, and I like the Fitz off the wall play. And as far as the running game goes, I think I'm going to keep being overweight on Nick Chubb. I don't really have a strong take on Kenyon Drake, but I get that he's going to have ownership. I just don't think I'm going to be that high.
And you're not worried about Kareem Hunt taking some usage away from Chubb?
Sure, I'm worried about it, but I mean, the truth is, I think Chubb's had his most carries since Hunt's been back in the lineup. So I'm not like he didn't last week. What did he have? He only 15. He had 21, 27, 16, and 15. So yeah, it's a little worrisome. I'm worried about the pass catching work. Still think that there's enough upside for multi-touchdowns that I'm going to place more of them in the field well.
So again, I don't play cash games, but if I were playing cash games, what I would say is, are you more concerned of Chubb getting his usage impacted by Kareem Hunt being at 7,900 than being concerned with Saquon Barkley getting his usage trimmed by Wayne Gallman when Saquon Barkley is only 7,700? So that's I think at least from a cash perspective, it's a very, very valid point. I think that Barkley is just light years better play overall than Chubb. But again, at 1% ownership compared to 25, whatever.
Yeah. Chubb and just that upside for him. And the weirdest part is that he's actually had better games this year than Barkley has for the most part.
Well, everybody's had better games than Barkley has this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, this is the guy that we used to play. Is he back healthy yet, this Njoku, or not really?
He is.
He was limited to practice. That's the only thing.
I didn't think the official word that he was officially in, but if he's back, I think you could throw him in your pool for sure. He's talented, that guy. Yeah, I think he would go in my player pool. I don't think I would go crazy on him or anything coming back.
Do you have a preference between Landry or Beckham?
Oh, it's always – I don't care what the results are. With the very, very few exceptions, it's always going to be Beckham for me. Because we play tournaments. We don't play cash games. Like, I know Beckham – I know he's had some big games, and this could be a possession, whatever. But, like, the only way I usually find myself with him is, like, maybe I'll pivot off in one spot. Or
No, what do you mean by that? Again, you never know, like, what type of players watch this. When you say, it's always Beckham over Landry. We play tournaments. Like, what does that mean? Like, why does that mean?
Possession receiver. Like, that's what he is. Landry's a possession receiver who, through a brief stint and had 3-4 games in a row where he had scored a touchdown this year. Other than that, is not a guy in his whole career who's ever been a touchdown guy. He doesn't catch long passes. He doesn't have he doesn't have many air yards. He's a guy who gets the majority of his work through being a good possession receiver. Beckham is the explosive guy who, even though he hasn't shown it much, I mean, he did put up 19 last week. It wasn't like he was awful, but like Beckham still has a 35 in him. Like he's got I break you for 2 plays. I take the top off the defense twice kind of ability. That's not what Jarvis Landry does.
And from a math / my view, my portfolio management view, I mean, the way I look at it is everything Bobby said translates to me as, you have 2 guys, again, that both might have a similar median projection that over the course of time might average the same number of points. But because Landry's going to generate those points kind of, possessions, 9-yard catches, 8-yard catches, whatever, he has a much smoother distribution of results. But Beckham, even though he might end up with a similar median, is going to have that many more outlier results on the positive side just because of the way his distribute based on the type of patterns he runs and the type of skill set he has. So if you want to play GPPs where you have to, really not want that median, you're going to want that ceiling. That's why, you want to play somebody like Beckham. Is that?
Yeah,
Landry. I said the same thing Bobby did.
Yeah, Landry's the cash game play is basically the way to.
Yeah.
I actually think he is a cash game play. I just don't think that I like him as much for tournaments.
Okay. Going ahead to Jacksonville at Oakland. So Jacksonville very well may have given up this season. It's so funny what's happened to them. I mean, especially defensively over the last 2 years. I mean, I know they lost Ramsey or whatever it is, and might have lost other guys, but they became from Saxonville to just maybe the worst defensive team in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like people are just marching down the field on them. So the first thing I'm actually looking at here would be to do something on the Oakland side. Now the safest.
I'm gonna have to rant for a second before you get into this.
Yeah.
Because I was the one. Okay, I don't understand how this happened last week. We had the word that Josh Jacobs was out on every you could late swap on every site for football except for fantasy draft, and no one played DeAndre Washington but me. And look, I got a lot of other things wrong, so I didn't have a great week. But DeAndre Washington was 3K, and no one played him, and he put up 20, of course. That makes 0 sense to me. So obviously we need to find out if Jacobs is playing, but it's interesting to me that DeAndre Washington could be the highest owned player on the slate at 4.7 when everybody had the same exact opportunity last week, actually in potentially even a better spot. Like, I know you're saying all that stuff about Jacksonville defense, but whatever, like it was still a good spot. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how is that possible?
Well, they didn't have it. It wasn't exactly the same because now again, this is no excuse. But news did come up after 1 o'clock, right? So
sure. But but right now we're projecting DeAndre Washington as the highest owned player, assuming that Jacobs is out, and nobody was even talking about him as a play. What if Jacobs is out? And everybody wanted to play Bilal Powell. It just is so weird to me the way that the minds work, and including me. Like I did most of it, but I didn't do nearly enough of it. Like I should have thought that one through. And if we're gonna treat this week the same.
Now, was DeAndre Washington again? I wasn't. I was one of those people. I was just watching football. I had some Josh Jacobs in fantasy draft where he couldn't swap. Mm-hmm. So when I heard that he was out, I'm just like, oh, okay, couple lineups dead. I didn't even really. Again, I was lazy. I didn't think about. Boy, is there something I should go back and just try to swap out of it? If I had done that, for example, was it close between Washington and Jalen Richard, or was Washington clearly going to be the guy?
He's the guy. Richard's the pass catching back. This is what their roles have always been. But even still, like, Richard didn't have any ownership either. Like, and this week we were planning on him having. It's just such a weird situation to me. How everybody just I just think it's like an overreacting that I want to be less than the field if everybody's going to jump on Washington, even though I like the spot. And I would like to be like probably overweight on Richard because I see just as much upside for him depending on the game flow. So I would probably go that route.
So you really don't think that that Jacobs plays? Well, it doesn't even matter what you think. In other words, you're being prepared for the possibility that he doesn't play. And I wonder, what if they announce the same thing? Like if it's, they say game time decision again. Listen, shame on me the first time if I don't notice it. But if this happens again, like if he gets ruled out past lock again on DraftKings, then if people don't swap, then it's a disaster. Like then
the only thing is though, then if they don't, then maybe now is the time maybe you don't swap because you're going to have the ownership there this time.
Right.
And I don't know that I want to play a chalky version of this when there's other running backs on the slate that I like, especially as you sort of hinted around. Like that's they do basically just play. Washington will get the running plays, Richard will get the pass catching plays. So it's not exactly a 50-50 split, but it's like I don't know. I don't feel like it's like you need to play them when they're going to be 1,000,000% owned. So let's wait to see what ownership says on this one. And we have to see about Josh Jacobs. That's the truth. And to me, that's where this whole game is going to be dictated, except for I do think some of the receivers are a little bit interesting.
Well, for me, I mean, honestly, what's his name? With DJ Shark out? I mean, is he out?
We don't have official word yet.
I mean, if he's out, then Conley and Westbrook, I would say Westbrook and Conley because Westbrook's the obvious one. Westbrook and Conley are just incredible plays.
Westbrook might be out too.
I mean, well, let me see what it says on him.
Then you play Conley and
Keelan Cole.
Yeah.
And the Raiders' defense is nothing to write home about. Or you could just play a lot more of Leonard Fournette also.
I'm less on Fournette and more on the passing game, I think, even though it's a good spot like for everybody. But I think that Minshew with Conley and Cole potentially, I think that's an interesting way to go on this slate. And it's definitely something that I'm going to be doing some of. Running it back with a combination of Darren Waller, Tyrell Williams, and maybe one of the running backs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just playing around. I wasn't even aware that DJ Shark is legit. I mean, one of the places actually assuming him out in projections, so I have to really, again, like you said, there's a lot of injury stuff that needs to be sorted out. On the one hand, I can only hope it happens early, but on the other hand, it depends how busy you are that day. Like if you're a professional and you're in front of the screen where you're supposed to be, you probably prefer that they release the news later so that you could be more nimble, or even better, let them release it after lock so that you can really show your skill and figure out the best way to late swap on sites that you can late swap. Or you have a site like FanDuel or wherever you can't late swap, you could speculate a little bit on some of these 4 o'clock games with what they might do if they don't release lock. But you presume that most of them are going to release it by lock.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine.
This is turning into a pretty exciting slate. Maybe not so much from a football perspective, but from a playing the slate perspective.
It's interesting. It's
really really challenging. I think
it's going to be a really, really interesting slate. I've got a lot of spread out ownership for this early. I need to harness in a little bit on my focus because there's a lot of spots that I really like, and we're going to get to another one in just a minute.
All right, so the next game is Minnesota at the Chargers.
Yeah. I only have mild leads from this one. I thought we were going to do a different game.
You want to skip ahead?
No. Let's do this.
I'm just going to the DraftKings one. So I am presuming that Thielen is in.
Yep.
Again, I guess you just have to continue to monitor that. limited participant. He's trending towards suiting up. So I'm presuming he's in.
Important game for them.
Yeah, I mean, if he's – and I presume that Dalvin Cook is feeling better.
Yeah.
So from a projection perspective, I mean, Cook is not really looking so hot. I mean, he's not looking to be a really, really good value. What's that?
I love Dalvin Cook this week.
Yeah. No, we'll get back to that. From a projection perspective, he's not looking to be that great a value. He is showing to be only about 10% owned or whatever it is. And receiver side, they're both these guys. Well, both these guys. Thielen is and Diggs are both single-digit ownerships. They're projecting just kind of okay. So these are just the guys I would look to if I was going to play Minnesota. I'll leave that to you about the Dalvin Cook thing. And the Chargers, on the Chargers side, I mean, Gordon, I guess okay. Eckler smashed last week. I just kind of have this weird feeling this is going to be kind of an uglier game than maybe other people do. I don't know. Maybe are people looking at this game as something they're going to be playing a lot of? Because I don't know. I think that this game could be a little uglier. But if you're going to play LAC, I mean, you play Keenan Allen, you play Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, the usual guys. But so tell me about your Dalvin Cook play.
Well, I love Dalvin Cook. I think he's one of the top plays on the board. The Chargers are done. I think this is a spot where Minnesota could get healthy and get right. I think Thielen being back will even help him. I think he's actually too cheap. He's a great pivot off of McCaffrey. He's a great to play alongside McCaffrey. I also really like the passing game of the Chargers in this one. I don't want to take Rivers, but I want to play one of Williams or Keenan Allen quite a bit, and I really like them. Like, I think that they are two top-level plays. I am not buying – what I like this Minnesota defense, and I was high on them until I started watching Xavier Rhodes try to cover everyone. He cannot cover anyone anymore, and they still leave him alone out there. These guys can potentially get lit up. Phillip Rivers does this at this time of season. Like every year, it feels like he gets this rapport going with Keenan Allen. They go through these streaks in and out of it. Would have had a bigger one last week, but the running game did all the damage. I think it's just a really, really interesting spot to attack these low ownerships with the guys for me in the game are Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. I don't mind if you want to take a shot on Diggs or Thielen, but it's not where I'm headed. It's one of those, the Charger receivers, or even I would consider Hunter Henry as a slightly less priority play. And then you run it back with Dalvin Cook on the other side. I really like that little pairing.
That's really interesting. So you would run it back with Dalvin Cook.
I just think it's a good logical play. Like if you're going to play Cook to run all over them, they're going to be throwing from behind, running from ahead. It's a logical game flow type of play.
But you might not play Rivers, right?
I don't think I wouldn't play. I don't think I'd play either quarterback in this game.
Okay. Keenan Allen, I mean, he's projects to be pretty decent. Is he 2%? I mean, maybe.
I don't understand this.
Yeah.
It happens, man. It happens every time. And what if I told you that the guy who scored the most fantasy points last week is less than 1% owned this week, which is Austin Eckler. Like, everybody in this game, you could make a really strong case for, even in a tough matchup, just at the crazy low ownership that they're going to be for their talent level.
6,700 Austin Eckler or 6,500 Melvin Gordon.
I'm leaning a little bit Gordon, by the way, but I leaned Gordon last week, and Eckler scored 1 million fantasy points.
All right. This will definitely be a low own, one of those.
Yeah, I don't want it to passing full stack.
I'll tell you. Look at all these games. Wait a minute. Look at all of these games at 4:00.
I know, it's incredible. Finally.
Wow, there are 5 games at 4:00.
Finally. Those late game substitutions are going to pay off this week.
And like they say, if it's 4:00 and you're sitting in first place, I would not be spending your million quite yet.
Yeah, unless you somehow stacked like a 65 to 55 game or something.
Yeah, I don't know if that's happening those first. Yeah, unless Washington Philly blows up. All right, so next game is Rams Dallas, and it's so funny the way crowd think and momentum happens. Like at the very, very beginning of the week. Okay, a few things I watched, a few things I was listening to, whatever. My initial take, I guess this was just because it was right after the Monday night game. I think Monday night or Sunday night. I was anticipating the chalkiest player on the slate to be Todd Gurley. And by a healthy margin. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty clear that he was all of a sudden all explosive again, and he was awesome. And Dallas and the Rams were getting everything right, and he's only 6K, and he's still projecting to be a pretty good play, and he's only projected to be, I say only, he's projected to be 15-16% owned. So I don't want to forget that the reasons why I thought that Gurley was going to be a good play at the beginning of the week, if he gets completely overlooked towards the end of the week. But the Rams, as far as I'm concerned, these Rams and Cowboys are going in completely opposite directions. I think that, I mean, you being one of the Rams whisperers or whatever it is, I think the Rams are getting their act together. This is a really tough call to make, I guess. Who would have thought this like several weeks ago? But I think the Rams just destroy them like on the road, and it's very difficult. But I just think they have a huge coaching advantage. I think it's all. I think that Dallas could be in for a lot of trouble this game. So I am not going. I'm not saying I'm not going to, but I was under the impression that I was going to play more Zeke than I might. He is looking to be a pretty decent play, but I'm probably not going to go there. I'm going to play a lot of this Rams game. A lot of these Rams guys go. I'm going to play Gurley. I'm going to play Goff, and I'd love to have your opinion on how these receivers are shaking out, because Kupp last week. Now again, this could have been just because they found something they liked. He was not on the field that often, actually. Yeah. They had these weird plays they were going with. They kept running these jet sweeps like one after another, and Higbee was basically like their main receiver or something like that. So I don't know exactly what they're doing with their receivers. I guess they were doing whatever's working, but I'm still going to be interested in Higbee again. Why not? And I would go back to Kupp. I would even try Josh Reynolds. I'll play some Gurley. I think the Rams are going to really be in good shape in this game.
Yeah, I think you're reaching on Reynolds in my opinion, but I like this game too. Amari is really cheap and unowned, and I know it's a terrible matchup, but I don't know that Ramsey's necessarily going to shadow him the entire time. So I just want to throw that as a potential like guy you might want to get a little bit of exposure to. I also think the same thing is true with Michael Gallup. Like, I mean, you could take a shot on him on the other side. I think it's kind of an interesting game. I actually found myself a little bit leaning more toward the Dallas side of things. I prefer Zeke over Gurley. I do like Gurley though a little bit, but I prefer Zeke. I like Gallup some, and I have some interest just in Cooper because of the ownership. And then I think all the Rams receivers make a lot of sense. Brandon Cooks is going to be completely unowned, and he's 4.5. He hasn't looked right, but I would take that shot at 4.5. I also think that Woods and Kupp are going to be more chalky, but I'm not worried about the Kupp being off the field. It's strictly just they were running different types of personnel packages that I don't think I'm necessarily going to see again personally. But I mean, and he still can be fine anyway. But yeah, I like them all. It's just about prioritizing, and I just think I like other games better. But this is a game where I've got some more 10 to 15%ers, and those are pretty much the ones I just mentioned.
All right.
I do think that it's worth it to try and take a shot on Dak in the passing game against the Rams, because at times that defense can be great and it can be absolutely awful.
Okay, last game. You don't say late night hammer because they all are at the same. They're all at the same time. But Atlanta against San Francisco. I don't know. I just have this weird feeling that the game is very similar. I can't say it's that similar because the Saints are obviously a lot better than Atlanta, but I definitely see this as more of an offensive game where Atlanta can actually compete a little bit, and I would play it very similarly to the way last week worked, where I would play Garoppolo with with the same receivers, with Sanders again, maybe Samuel, maybe go back to Kittle, and on the other side, I mean, I'm presuming he's healthy. I mean, you get Julio Jones at 5% ownership. I mean, I'm just going to have to try it. I'm just going to have to try it. And again, you certainly see variations where San Francisco gets all mad that their defense finally had a bad game, and they focus their whole week on defense and decide to completely destroy Atlanta and bottle them up. And the game goes exactly the opposite direction. And you end up, getting Mosher or whoever the running back's going to be to just rack up all the late touchdowns or whatever it is. But my initial take is that, Garoppolo had a really good time flinging the ball around, and he might have kind of a pretty good time doing it again.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting take. I just can't stack too many games, but I get
Yeah,
it.
I know. I hear you.
There's just too many spots. I'm definitely interested. Kittle would be my most interesting player in this game, along with, I agree with you, that when you see Julio Jones at this price, at this ownership, you kind of have to take shots at some point. And it takes a long time playing to really get used to that. First of all, even as he's been down this year, he's still had four games that we would love and we'd be happy with from his price in this. He's matchup proof to a certain extent too. I just feel like you play Julio, you play the best receiver in football when he's not owned.
You know what we have to talk about? We really didn't talk about it. Maybe, again, I feel like we get lazy just because it's the last game. But one thing that should not go unnoticed is Calvin Ridley out for the year, right?
Yeah, Calvin Ridley out. I was going to mention Russell Gage,
okay,
as an interesting play. I mean, they did raise the price on him to $5K. I don't think I would go for Christian Blake because it's not a good enough matchup. Although I do tend to like to play all three. I like all of the Atlanta receivers usually, but it's not a good enough matchup for me to play Blake. So
that's interesting. So that would be the. Again, I didn't really look too much into the third guy. So Christian Blake would instinctively be the third guy that you would. I mean, if you were going to
Zacchaeus, or can't pronounce that guy's name. Maybe.
See the guy the guy I always see getting catches when I'm looking for Julio Jones to get the catches was Justin Hardy. So I don't know how many targets he gets.
Yeah, they use him for certain plays. It just depends on who's going to play what. Christian Blake did have 2 9-target games this week.
Yeah, I see that.
So I don't know. It depends on what we hear, but I still don't think I'm going to go that route on this slate. I think that it's just going to be Jones or Gage, but even that, I'm not going to be that high on Gage. But I do think Julio, I might go 20% on him just because no one's going to play him.
So we went through game by game, and I was just kind of hoping that by the end of the game by game, I would have more of a direction. So the last 2 NFL slates that we've done, I knew where I was going. Okay, I actually won the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago I won. This last week I actually broke even, and I knew what my plan of attack was. And as of right now, again, like you said, boy, Eric, you're doing all these crazy stacks all over the place. You can't play everybody, and it's a really good point. I really don't know exactly where I'm going to go this week, and I guess that's because there's so many different injury things that could come up. What I'm going to end up having to do is take a couple of stands somewhere. You know what I mean? And because you play every quarterback and every stack, whatever, you just have no shot. So yeah. I am going to have to try to find something at this particular point. I'm not going to lie. I just don't know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny because I did obviously great 2 weeks ago, and I had no idea that week until the day. I really changed a lot of what I was going to do towards the end because of the injury news. And I think this could be one of those kind of days but I do have some guys I feel good about. I feel good about taking a stance on Dalvin Cook. I feel good about taking a stance on Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, one of the 2 receivers against the Minnesota guys, who are just low-owned spots, you know what I mean, to really attack. I feel good about taking a stance on Amendola or Galladay. And I feel good about, I feel safe enough with Saquon, Christian Kirk, and Tyler Higbee as my core. I like my cores. I just don't know that it's not – there's a lot of different games I could see myself stacking them with.
Well, what's annoying also? That there's no big, huge amount of chalk that is the battlegrounds. You know what I mean? It's not like do you fade Bilal Powell or not? You know what I mean? There's nobody here that's the main pivot point of the slate. There's ownership kind of just spread out and all over the place. So I guess not to be evasive, but I guess what I would say, my advice on the slate is, I guess similar to what it was last week, is just watch the ownership and watch the crowd thing. Let me tell you this. Now this is again half advanced, half beginnerish, but this is hard to explain. But the chances of, let's say, DeAndre Hopkins, smashing, are not going to change between now and Sunday. Okay. They are the exact same chances, but the people's perception of what those chances are is going to change in the terms of increased popularity. So if I would advise something, I would see where people's ownership goes from now until then, and probably fade whatever the momentum of the ownership is. Like if one guy, like right now, like let's say Beckham, it's like 11%. If he ends up goes from 11 to 20, that would be a guy I would fade more than a guy that was like 20 the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would fade like the ownership momentum as opposed to fading the straight ownership. So that could be either a really beginner way of looking at it, but it is the way I think about stocks and some more.
I think it's an excellent point. I totally agree with that. Anything else before we get out of here, man? I think we've done a pretty good job getting in depth in it. Look, we still have a lot of information that we don't know about yet, but those are the guys who I'm playing. Sheets talked about the guys he's playing, and there's a lot of different ways you could stack games and filter in your core through with some of the guys we mentioned. And we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So let us know. But Sheets, I'll let you say anything else before we get out of here.
I don't know, man. I got a guy who went 9 targets last week, 7 targets 3 weeks before, and he's 3K. So I don't know what to tell you.
All right. I guess we're going to be playing a little bit of Greg Ward, according to Sheets. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back doing a showdown video very shortly. Really appreciate you guys giving us a thumbs up and the like. We will talk to you shortly.